Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my opinion. And yes, India have lost this game against New Zealand today. And unless results go their way, which they probably won't, they are out of contention to be in this to finish in the top two, and therefore will not be able to go into the semi-finals. Now, when I mean results going their way, I really only think one game where it could be possible, and I think Afghanistan versus New Zealand played at 10 a.m. UK time in Abu Dhabi. So the toss won't be as much of a factor. Afghanistan spinners with no dew during the day, so Afghanistan spinners will be able to be be effective in both innings. But I still think that despite how well Afghanistan have played in this tournament so far, I do think New Zealand will get the job done. So I think that India are basically out of the race to get to the semi-finals. It's quite anticlimactic because this team was rightly favourites when they came into this tournament, and they beat England and Australia convincingly in the warm-up games, and also they beat Australia 2-1, I think, in Australia, and also they beat England as well in the T20 series in India. So this team has been it came into this tournament as rightful favourites. And let's just say, when I was watching today's game and also after the Pakistan game, I've been defending India quite a lot on especially like WhatsApp groups and stuff, because I do think it's something that we've seen in this tournament so far, that the proposition of Dubai night games. And India play 4 out of their 5 games in Dubai at night. And I think that, especially with them playing against the two best teams that they could face in the group, being Pakistan and New Zealand, and playing them in a situation where, if winning the toss is largely, it propels the team that bowls first to victory. I think that there was always going to be chance involved in India's games. And basically, yeah, 4 of India's games theoretically would have that element of chance to them that's not only affected India but affected Australia when they got destroyed by England, and Sri Lanka also got beaten by Australia as well. And the thing is that, and also Pakistan, despite the fact that game was a close game, they still chased the total that Afghanistan posted. So I think that it's not only India that has struggled with this, but I'm saying that I'm gonna talk about this game, India versus New Zealand, and I'm also gonna talk about things that what I think about the fact that, can you use the Dubai pitch as an excuse, or can you not? And I personally think you can, but I'm gonna get to both sides of the argument. So coming to this game, Kane Williamson won the toss and chose to field. Now, I wasn't surprised that Virat Kohli lost the toss, because he virtually never wins tosses. And the thing is that the moment India lost the toss and Kane Williamson chose to field, I was refreshing the ESPN Cricket Info page a lot just to see that. But the moment I said New Zealand won the toss and chose to field, I knew that India were going to lose. And Murali Karthik also said one would think it's half the job done on commentary for New Zealand. And it turned out to be more than half. Now, so the thing is, the openers of India walked out to bat, KL Rahul and Ishan Kishan. Now, there are two ways you can go about Ishan Kishan opening. So the thing is, I actually thought it was a good idea, because you've seen the impact he has in the IPL, also in his debut when he scored against England, and also in the warm-up game when I think he played well in the warm-up game as well. So honestly, I think that, the fact is, Ishan Kishan has played impactful innings at the top in T20 cricket. And I think that, especially with the recent innings he played for Mumbai Indians as well, I think that knowing what he can do when he gets going, and especially the fact that India thought, right, we lost to Pakistan, even though we got a good score for how the conditions were in the first innings, and 151 in those conditions wasn't bad at all, but then things got easier in the second innings. So meaning that if Ishan Kishan can get in and get some quick runs and bat for not a completely long time, which probably will be a huge ask for someone to bat in conditions that are that difficult for the batsman. But I'm saying that even if he batted for a little while and gave India some kind of a start they could build from, he would have done his job. And so I actually would think that it was worth the try. You could say, look, Rohit Sharma is the best opener in white ball cricket. and this opening partnership is the best, probably all format opening partnership in the world. So you could say that, right, Ishan Kishan in the middle order against Ish Sodhi and Mitchell Santner, meaning that they both turn the ball into the left-hander generally. So if Ishan Kishan could kind of try and attack them and give India the advantage during the middle phase. Now, the thing is, I think I understand why India went with Ishan Kishan opening, because I said before that in the UAE and even the IPL, we've seen that someone in slogging in the middle order, that's why these power hitters haven't necessarily had that much of an impact, especially you've seen with the Mumbai Indians. Their power hitters down the order have not had the same impact because it is quite difficult. It was difficult in Chennai and it's also difficult in the UAE for the power hitters to start hitting straight away. So I understand why Ishan Kishan went up to the top. And I just think that it was worth the try. It didn't really work though, because I must say, with Pakistan and New Zealand against India, the fact is that despite the fact that the team winning the toss and bowling has quite a bit more of an advantage, I think that you still have to use the conditions. And one thing which I saw was in both innings was Shaheen and Trent Bolt were on the money throughout their opening spells, setting the tone. Both swung the ball, and the thing is that it became very apparent in the second innings that this was not going to be very easy for India. And Ishan, this is probably the most unfavored, despite the fact that he was in his preferred slot and he had the license, this was probably the most unfavorable thing for Ishan Kishan if he was opening, because he would like it when he can. It's much easier to hit, whereas when the bowlers are bowling well, you have to bide your time, and especially in the context of the situation where India have just lost after scoring 151, you'd think you need much more than that, and you're in two minds. You think, right, they're bowling well, I don't want to just lose my wicket. At the same point, you think, I've been sent to do the job to accelerate and go at the bowling from ball one. What do I do here? And so it was quite a confusing. He scored 4 of 8 balls in the end. He got out off a leg stump half volley off Trent Bolt, caught a deep backward square leg, and that was his innings. And I think that throughout the innings, New Zealand especially, not a single bowler had an off day. And so they never gave India any breathing space throughout the 20 overs. And they just completely enforced the entire innings so that India just did not have a chance at it. And I think that the most India were in the game was when Rohit Sharma walked into bat was kind of playing. He hit a 6 and I think the 6th over. And before that, the ball after Ishan Kishan got out, Rohit Sharma pulled one off Trent Bolt as well, and luckily Adam Milne dropped the catch, which as an Indian fan I was very happy about, because I think that if you look at our batting lineup, even though we lost quite a few wickets to near the end, or at one point 5 wickets down, and you think who's walking in, and you think, right, sorry, you think that it's Hardik Pandya and Ravindra Jadeja batting together who can, on a normal day, accelerate. So I think that our batting depth was certainly shown in this, despite the fact that it didn't really work to our favour. I think that you look at the fact that India had many players who could have played that impact innings, but because of how well New Zealand was bowling, the conditions as well, and also the fact that it is harder for players in the middle and lower order to kind of hit straight away in the UAE, it meant that India couldn't really do much. And the most I thought India were in the game was when Rohit Sharma was hitting the 6 off Adam Milne, I think, but then he got out in the same over, in the last over of the power play, and I think that was that. And New Zealand had got 2 wickets. And I think that India were in, like I said this with Ishan Kishan as well, and India were generally throughout the series in a catch-22, because you think, and I think that people have to understand this, because despite the fact you may say, okay, they just hit it to the fielders, but this is a team that lost a game convincingly against Pakistan when they got a very good score. As kind of, if you look at the conditions in the first innings, they got a very good score, 151. They could not have got more than that, and with how the innings went. And Pakistan won by 10 wickets. And yes, look, right, they batted well. And I think that two of the Indian bowlers didn't have the greatest of days they would have liked. But still, look, they were only 71 without loss in the first 10 overs. India could have maybe, there was always a case where with the nature of the openers as players, well, as I said, they're touch players and they don't necessarily, they like to take their time, and they like a situation where they can take their time, and this scenario was perfect for them. And the thing is, I think India could have enforced scoreboard pressure, maybe if not taking wickets, with a few tight overs. And I think that, yeah, they could have done that. But the thing is, the fact is, bowling conditions in the second innings it was much harder. It was much easier to bat in the second innings. And it kind of also, because of that, they did lose. I'm not saying it was completely because of it, but a lot to do with it kind of was the fact that the bowlers did not get or could not get the same punches. And after that loss, you think, right, it's a must-win game for both teams. And knowing that they're playing in the same situation again, on the same pitch that England and Australia played their games, and you saw how much of a walkover that was, which I will get to. But the fact is that India thinking, if we lose, like if any team that loses the toss in this scenario will be a huge disadvantage. India were, because they lost the toss. And the thing is, this is a case where they have to get a lot of runs, but the fact is the bowling is good in good bowling conditions. So there's a catch-22, which kind of went through all of it went through all the batsmen, because they think, should we accelerate or should we just nurtle the ball around? And they think, if we just kind of play out the new ball, we won't be able to, we have too much to do at the end to get to a decent total that will be enough to, or just maybe defendable. And if we try and go for it and get out, then we'll just lose our wickets and create problems. So India were caught in that situation. Even so, I mean, Kohli's innings just illustrated that, right? 9 of 17, and the way, how often do you see Kohli just going for that game? This whole innings just seemed he was batting out of position. He just didn't look comfortable. And yeah, he tried to go for it. It was very frustrated innings and very frustrated dismissal. And yeah, he got out. And so 48 for 4 after, I think, roughly 10 overs. And India, at that point, you could just say they definitely weren't in the game. And I just think that because of the way New Zealand bowled and the conditions, India just could not have a sniff. Then the second innings came, and I actually thought that India bowled quite well. I just think that because the batting did ease out. And I think that the shot which really showed that it eased out was because you saw in the first innings when the spinners bowled, the ball gripped, and there wasn't that as much bounce as you would think in the second innings. Or rather, the ball didn't sit up, so you couldn't exactly play. Daryl Mitchell hit a 6 off Jadeja off the back foot over mid-wicket. Now, you could not have done that in the first innings because it was gripping a lot more. And yeah, the ball didn't really sit up to be hit. So the India could not have done that at all. And I think that despite the fact that I was actually surprised Bumrah got any swing, and he bowled very well, so did Chakravarti. But despite the fact that India bowled well, the pitch did ease out. And so New Zealand, they just went on their way and they won the game. And Shane Watson on commentary said, he said, I mean, New Zealand should play out the first 4 overs with Chakravarti and Bumrah, and they're the main threat. Did India have that luxury? Because they were batting in harder conditions, trying to set a score against a good bowling attack also that was bowling well. And India did not have the luxury of playing them out because it would have affected them in trying to post or what they thought would have been a competitive total, considering that 151 did not win in the game before. So I think that India were definitely at a disadvantage in the fact that there was actually not much else of a way apart from getting into the catch-22 situation, because the problem is that, and before I talk about this, look, I think that one similarity where, yes, the situations are different, but Babar Azam and Mohammad Rizwan and Kane Williamson, the common thing is the singles they ran. Now, Babar Azam and Mohammad Rizwan is kind of a partnership thing where Rizwan especially instigated them to run singles. But Kane Williamson, I mean, there's a ball where Varun Chakravarti bowled it just outside off stump. He just dabs it, I think, to the short third man fielder. He naturally plays the ball very late, and so he somehow manages to get a run off that, and he just looks so assured at the crease, and so he just didn't look like getting out at all. And so, yeah, New Zealand just went on their merry way and won the game. And I actually don't think India bowled badly at all, but I just think that, yeah, that's how it is. And there is one thing which you could say, right, if you're really trying to, I think especially if you saw Adam Milne after his first over where he got hit a bit, he bowled a lot of deliveries into the pitch. It was quite difficult for India to play them, especially with Shaheen Afridi getting Kohli's wicket in the Pakistan game, that kind of the slow ball bouncer that went across him. I think that in the first innings, the pitch suited that much more as well than the second innings with the ball coming on much more. But also the fact is, I don't think that India would have necessarily used that form of attack, especially you look at someone like a Mohammad Shami. He usually bowls on a length, tries to get the ball to swing, and he doesn't necessarily go for all the slow ball bouncer stuff or tennis ball bouncer stuff. So the thing is, this may be a bit of a stretch saying this, but I do think that I think in the second innings the pitch wouldn't have necessarily been conducive for that, but also India's bowlers probably may not have used that method. But yeah, it's not really anything, because I'm saying that it was still it was harder for India to bowl. And I think that, yeah, defending 110, New Zealand could just they could just pace their innings however they wanted to, as long as they reached the target, and they did so with these. And yeah, here's the thing, as far as this Dubai night game thing is concerned, you could say, is it an excuse or is it not an excuse? I think it's an excuse because, as I said, right, if you look at this game, you think, right, so India have to get more runs than they got before to make a game out of it. Now, the thing is, you'd think, okay, India have to get at least 160 or so on, okay, send Shankishan up and so on. The problem in this case is there's a difference between what total is required to make a game out of it and what total is good on the particular surface of the first innings. And how conditions were in the first innings with the ball moving around, you saw the same pitch that was used for England and Australia. Trent moved the ball around, and so in that particular situation, you could not attribute or associate a high total with that particular wicket at that point of time. So if you're asking India the thing is, the natural instinct, and I think India did do the right thing at first by trying to play out the deliveries when the ball was swinging, but also there's something in their mind saying, right, you have to try and score runs as well to be on track to get the total you want to get. So as you can see here, there's a difference between the total that would be accept or good on this particular wicket in the first innings than what a total would be to make a game out of it. And it's because of this disconnect that you have India being caught in a catch-22, which they got frustrated, tried to go for the big shot, and then got out. So in this situation where there's a disconnect between the required total and the total that would be good for this particular thing, you can't, I know I've said this about 3 times now, but I'm saying that you can't actually blame that catch-22 situation. As you can see, it is quite an unfair situation to be in. And yeah, that's the reason why I'm saying it's not only India that struggled with this, it's been other teams as well. But the thing is, now I'm going to say something which you could use as an argument against that. So in the Australia-England game, now if you look at I just also watched the highlights back as well. And actually, if you look at it, the wickets that fell for Australia, yes, the Warner one. I mean, even then he kind of walked down the track. And I didn't really know what to say about that one, but Steve Smith, he just did it the toe end of the bat. Chris Wilkes caught the one-handed catch, and the other players just hit it straight to the fielder and just didn't. All the dismissals weren't actually. Yes, England bowled very well with the new ball, Chris Wilkes and Chris Jordan, but the dismissals themselves weren't that great. And also, if you look in the second innings, Australia didn't actually bowl. I thought they bowled with the boundary balls especially. They bowled quite short. And so, right, Josh Buttler completely thrashed them around. And I felt quite sorry for the Australian bowlers. But they didn't really bowl kind of the full ball, especially with the amount of boundaries. A lot of shots where you saw even Mitchell Stark kind of bowl. When it was full, it was a half volley, and then when it was short, it was just sitting up and ready to be hit. So I think that, okay, Australia probably didn't execute their plans as well as they would have wanted to, but also the dismissals came because it was hard for England were bowling well with the new ball, Chris Wilkes and Chris Jordan. And so the dismissals, despite the fact the dismissals themselves weren't great, and you look at even in this game, the dismissals themselves weren't great because of how good the bowling was, because you understand the trend of the fact that you'd want to get some runs so that you can actually have a chance to defend it. I think that that's the reason why, if you look at Australia and look at India, they did go for the shots and get out. And also, if you look at the kind of, it's just the fact that also, look, England are chasing not that great of a total. The opposition would be deflated in both cases, India and Australia. And you could say Australia didn't bowl as well as they would have liked, but also the ball was like England were, if you told England to play that same way in the first innings, they probably wouldn't have been able to. Now, I know I'm saying this hypothetically, but I'm saying that if it was, look, the team batting first would not have struggled that much if there was not something in the wicket. And I just think that with the way the ball was swinging in both these games, with the grass on the pitch and this particular pitch, I think that, there is the fact that if you do win the toss right in Dubai night games, there is a huge advantage. And I think even the outcomes of the games, and in many of the games, the way they've been won, it has proven it. And I also look, and there's another game which I'm going to talk about, which I think that it may also derail the theory a bit. And I'm saying that for half of this, I actually don't really have a response to this. So the thing is, look, Pakistan, Afghanistan. Afghanistan won the toss. They chose to bat first, which I thought wasn't a great decision, because you've seen the trend where if you bowl first, you probably win. They found themselves 33 for 3 and soon 51 for 4. And I thought this was going to be an absolute one-sided thrashing. And yet the bowling after that was terrible, and they got to, I think, 148 or something. Pakistan took a while to get it, and they needed 4 sixes, I think, in the last over from Asif Ali to win them the game. And so you could say, look, this game was much closer than before. What I'm trying to say is Afghanistan shouldn't have actually got to 148 because Pakistan bowled terribly after 51 for 4. And because of that, Afghanistan got to a total which I still thought wasn't enough. And look, despite the fact that they made a game of it, they still lost the game. But I'm saying that, it's just the fact they shouldn't have got there in the first place. And the one thing I can't argue for is that, it's a thing which may not be that good an excuse, but, what I'm trying to say is this, right? Even then, in the second innings, the ball still did grip. Now, India don't have the bowlers of that. For example, they don't have a Rashid Khan kind of... They don't really have a wrist spinner in their team. But right now, I've seen both these games. It's Chakravarti and Jadeja as the two spinners. And they're not kind of Rashid Khan type of bowlers. But I'm saying that the pitch was gripping a lot more, even in the second innings of that game, than in this game. And despite the fact that you get two bowlers who are different bowlers, but they are still spinners, and the ball didn't really, as I said, there wasn't the case even in that game where the ball sat up and you can pull it over mid-wicket for 6. And and even the 6 that Shoaib Malik hit was actually off the front foot. And so I think that there was slightly more assistance for the spinners in that game than there was in the India game. It may be a convenient excuse, you may think, because you think just for the India games he's saying that there wasn't much assistance, and he's basically just saying that even though Afghanistan tried to make a game out of it and made a game out of it, that there's somehow still a validation to what he's saying. But the thing is, you even saw that there wasn't actually that much assistance for the bowlers in the second. It did get a lot easier in this game for the batsmen. And of course, now the other the people who are kind of suggesting that it's not an excuse have probably won that battle in that kind of particular game because Afghanistan did make a game out of it. But also, you have been seeing that it has been easier to bat in the second innings, and no matter how the ball basically up. I was surprised Bumrah swung the ball today, as I said, because in the first game there wasn't they couldn't really swing the ball at all, and apart from Shaheen Afridi, really until now, no one had swung the ball before. Actually, I was surprised there was grass on the pitch for that England-Australia game, because if it wasn't, then there probably wouldn't have been much swing for that either. So I know I kind of went on a tangent there a bit, but I am saying that it wasn't completely great bowling conditions for India to bowl. Even there was slightly better conditions for Afghanistan than there was for India. But having said that, like, look, it's kind of just, I get what people are saying in terms of India playing 4 of their games in Dubai at night. Wouldn't you have a particular plan, a contingency plan, if you lost the toss, if you had to do the hard graft? And I really think that if India had got over the line in these games, it would have really put them, all right, they're coming into the tournament with the favourites tag. But I really think that it would have put them much ahead, kind of above the rest, because you'd have thought, right, this is a setback, a theoretical setback which they have, which is it's very easy for a team to be affected by this. It's basically based on probability, on what method you'll use. But yet India found a way and they won 2 crucial games. And it is a very good argument. But at the same time, it's a thing. So you look at 2 opposite ends of the spectrum, and it's actually with all due respect, quality of teams and conditions as well. So Bangladesh so far, who've been the worst team in the Super 12 stage, they are the only team that has their destiny had their destiny in their own hands, because all 5 games that they play are during the day, meaning that there is no dew, and with the sun baking down on the pitch, their spinners would be able to get into the game in both innings. And I think that, they'll be able to, it'd be a more consistent game across the 40 overs. And the problem with them was that they couldn't take advantage of that. And so, they lost to Sri Lanka, lost to England, lost to West Indies, and are now out of the tournament. And you look on the other hand, India, the favourites, they came to the tournament as favourites, but they have 4 of their games in conditions where, it changes. It changes from the second inning to the first inning to the second innings, and what method you use to win is based on probability. And even then, if you don't win the toss, you have a big disadvantage. So it is quite difficult to adapt to the latter, however good you are, because you can't. It's not even like the actual pitch is changing. No, it's not. It's just the fact that dew is coming in, or things are just easing out. And you can see that with the way that the team in the second inning is going about their business. And you may think, okay, coincidentally, for Sri Lanka and India and Australia, maybe the bowling was not the way they would have liked it. But I don't think you can put India in the category of the way Sri Lanka bowled. Because for Sri Lanka bowling, they genuinely just didn't bowl very well. Whereas for India, against Pakistan who scored 71 without loss after 10 overs. And India was still, even towards the end, there was talk of if Bumrah bowled the 18th over, and if he bowled a good over, maybe there'll be something out of the game. So I think that India still did well in both occasions to delay the loss, and you can't actually say anything about the bowlers. And even for the batsmen, it is quite a tough thing to adapt to these conditions, because you are playing 2 very good teams. And what I'm saying about this is right. So the fact is, Australia got demolished by England. And the only reason why there isn't much talk about them being demolished is because they played 2 games earlier. They beat South Africa and Abu Dhabi in a day game. And they bowled first against Sri Lanka in their second game. And they already have more than that. They have 2 wins already. So they lost to England in these conditions where they lost the toss. And so, because they already have 2 wins, there's actually not much talk about them not qualifying, etc. And even with England, the two teams that have won 3 and lost nothing have all chased. And you look at what Pakistan in 2 of their Dubai games have chased and won, albeit the second chase a bit, they did have to win it in the end by some spectacular play. But I'm saying that, especially in the first innings, they won the toss and they won. And with England, look, they played against a hapless West Indies team who, whatever the case, 55 all out was terrible. They played a day game against Bangladesh, which they also won. And against Australia, that was the most convincing toss to win because it was an absolute demolition against the best team that they would face in that group. If you pretend if England and Pakistan played in the semis against each other and they play in the second semi-final, which is in Dubai, and if the toss came into the equation there, what if one of those teams gets demolished? That's what I'm saying, that it could have affected any of those teams, but it didn't. And I think, I'm not taking any credit away from Pakistan, but because Pakistan beat India in whatever way they did, they beat India, it gave them that extra confidence to go and beat the other teams. Whereas for India, they lost against Pakistan, and it doesn't help when you have a game in the same venue, in the same time, against what? Pakistan and New Zealand, the 2 best teams that India could face in the group. It doesn't necessarily help. And that's why I'm saying logistically, look, they didn't necessarily, the logistics people didn't necessarily know that this was going to be the case, because the tournament was going to be played in India first and then it was moved to the UAE. So they didn't necessarily know this was going to happen, but India have kind of got the bad end of things because, they've had the stiffest challenge out of all the teams. You could say they maybe have been able to, or they kind of, to prove that they are the favourites, they should have won those, or at least given a better fight, but you can't actually blame them that much. Now, after, as I said, right, before I was kind of let's just say I was very passionately defending the Indian team in kind of WhatsApp groups, because I did think that it was a bit of an unfair proposition, considering a lot of the losses are in Dubai at the night games are based on the probability of winning or losing the toss. And the problem is, you could say winning the toss, right, it's a 50-50 split, either team wins it. And right, that is true in cricket. But the problem is that once you win the toss, things should just stop there. It's just whether you bowl or bat first. It shouldn't affect the game so much that if you bat first, you are so far behind actually winning the game. You have so much less chances of winning the game. And you have to take a whole different route. What? If you're just bowling first, you just play the game as it goes along. Whereas if you're batting first, you think, right, I am at such a big disadvantage because not only am I going to have the harder conditions to face when I'm batting, the pitch will ease out. So whatever score I post, it may be a good score in my first innings conditions, and in the second innings, it may look completely under par. So you have this thing where you have to take this whole complicated route of getting a decent score, which may not even be enough at the end of the day, and then try and go and defend it in conditions where you are on the back foot. So it really, it's a bit of an unfair roadmap. If you pick both, kind of win the toss and bowl, it's pretty smooth sailing. Lose the toss and bat, and you have to go through this whole kind of road to get the win, which would be fairly easy, or much easier, way easier, if you were bowling first. So that's what I'm saying. Now, you could say both things. You could say, right, the shots in both the India innings and the Australia innings weren't very good, but it's because the bowling was good. And it's because both teams wanted to get along with the scoring, and even so, both teams were, I think, 70 for 5 and about roughly near the 15 over mark. So the innings, and they both kind of followed the same trend of, as I said, they tried to play their shots because they were frustrated, and then they got out. So You could say, you could argue for both sides, and I think that I felt much more strongly about this just after the match, or definitely just after the Pakistan match. But with things that people have been saying, I do get what they are saying, right? If you play 4 games in Dubai, what you should try and have a. I think that if you win the toss, well and good, or if you lost the toss, you had to go through the hard way. If you won those games, it would have given so much more belief, and you would have been the rightful favourites. But no team has figured out the code to win in Dubai. And it would be interesting to see how a team defends a total in the night games because, yeah, so far with what I've seen in the tournament, it's looking a very hard proposition. But yeah, India basically out of the tournament. Hard luck, and yeah, I just think that good luck to. The thing is, now, yeah, I live in England. I've been living in England basically all my life, so I support England as my second team. Since India are out, I'm gonna be supporting England, and so yeah, I hope that England goes to the final and wins. And along the way, I would like to see a team defend a total in a Dubai night game, and I'd like to see how they go about their batting innings and definitely how they go about their bowling. With, of course, look, Afghanistan have kind of served a bit of a blueprint in their bowling and defending in the Dubai night game, but especially in batting, I think a team conquering that catch-22 situation would be something which I would like to see. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and please share this video with your friends. And remember, this is my opinion. What's yours?